Against all the evil that hell can conjure, all the wickedness that mankind can produce, we will send unto them only you. Rip and tear until it is done.
1993. The first-person genre was shaken in a big way and arguably made mainstream with the release of Doom. While various different Doom games were released throughout the years, by the time Doom 2016 came out, it had been the first major Doom in 12 years. This brings us to the year 2020, where the team that did 2016 brings us Doom Eternal. One thing's for sure right off the bat, it's a different beast in many ways than 2016, but how much of that is for the better? Much like how Doom has almost always been known for, barring a few exceptions, Doom Eternal is in fact a high-paced first-person shooter. It's very clearly built off of Doom 2016 and shares a number of its mechanics. You have arena fighting a la Serious Sam, as well as double jump, ledge grab, and weapon wheel your way to victory. The first major difference is that you don't have a pistol this time around. In fact, even your normal fist is useless under normal circumstances. Rather, you start out with a shotgun. I was initially concerned by the lack of a fallback infinite ammo weapon, but this is addressed in a few interesting ways. The first of which being the instant kill / ammo pinata chainsaw from 2016 is back here and replenishes the first fuel bar after a short time. Most of the rest of your weapons are carryovers from Doom 2016. These consist of the heavy assault rifle, now heavy cannon, chain gun, super shotgun, rocket launcher, plasma rifle, and BFG. The shotgun is largely the same, although the grenade mod is now a sticky bomb, and it also has the fully automatic mod like before, but it has a few different masteries. The sticky bomb will allow 5 consecutive shots, while the fully automatic causes killed enemies to drop shells. The heavy cannon is likewise pretty similar to its original appearance, but the scope mod fires a slow, concentrated shot. Since some enemy weapons now have weak spots to destroy them, this can be very handy if you want to cripple them a bit. The rocket launcher is more or less the same, with its mods being remote detonation and lock-on burst as before. The plasma rifle retains the heat wave, but interestingly the stun bomb was replaced with a microwave beam. It targets an enemy and bombards them with microwaves until they pop. Kinda reminds me of the expander from Duke 3D. It also now overcharges and explodes shields, which can be very handy. Of course, the BFG is basically the same as it was in Doom 2016, wherein the tendrils cause a little damage and the ball itself causes big damage. The super shotgun got changed the most, exchanging the shoot twice mastery of 2016 for a friggin' meat hook. Latch onto an enemy and you're pulled towards the demon just like the hook shot in The Legend of Zelda. This not only pulls you into optimally shorter range, you can stun weaker demons, but fully mastered sets the chain ablaze. Essentially, you can shoot armor out of them when they're in this state. This is very useful for keeping your vitals up, since Eternal, like 2016, treats armor as a second layer of health. The Gauss cannon is gone here, but replaced with a functionally pretty similar ballista. Its two mighty mods are the Air Ballist and Destroyer Blade respectively. The Air Ballist sticks into the enemy like an arrow and blows up. The Destroyer Blade shoots a big old blade that slices horizontally through a crowd. Of course, the ultimate secret weapon you can get is the Unmaker from Doom 64. The process to getting it isn't so easy, however, as it's sealed with 6 Empyrean locks. For each key, you must locate a Slayer Gate key in certain levels. From there, you enter a Slayer Gate and deal with some of the toughest arena fights the game has to offer, fighting later enemies early on. Succeed and you get the key. Obviously, once you get all 6 of them, you can unlock the Unmaker. The weapon itself isn't especially helpful as it uses rare BFG ammo, but it's a real treat when you have infinite ammo on. Speaking of cheats, however, you can't cheat your way through a Slayer Gate as the Slayer Gate key won't appear. That being said, you can always lower the difficulty and have extra lives stacked up. But wait, there's more! While your punch is useless, glory kills as well as extra health and armor pickups with the appropriate crystal upgrades charge up a blood punch. This does heavy damage, causes a shockwave, and can actually drop health from fallen enemies when you upgrade it accordingly in your suit options. You've also got a fire belch that sets multiple demons on fire. They constantly drop armor bit by bit while on fire, and a great deal when being shot. There's also an equipment launcher with ice bombs and grenades respectively. Grenades are self-explanatory, of course, but ice bombs freeze enemies stiff for a little while. The ice bombs can be upgraded to make enemies drop health when they're shot while frozen, freeze them longer, and damage them extra while frozen. That's of course another thing that reminds me of Duke 3D, because freeze thrower, baby. Grenades also have a few interesting upgrades, such as making fallen enemies drop cluster bombs and letting you shoot twice before you need to recharge it. The best part is that the fire belch, the grenade, and the ice bomb all recharge on their own over time, just like the chainsaw. For those of you who might miss the chainsaw due to it now being used heavily as ammo refilling, there's also the Crucible. As seen in the ending of 2016, this beautiful piss-off sword has 3 charges and will instantly kill any non-boss enemy at the cost of only 1 charge each. And I do mean any enemy, so best to use them on the arch file. Another very interesting addition is that on top of double jumping, you can now dash horizontally twice and it charges up after a short while. In addition to being used to solve some platforming sections, it can also be used in combat to dodge attacks, and a suit upgrade also refills them upon using glory kills, and some longer jumps have refills in them. Another massive change is an extra life system. Don't worry, this isn't like Wolfenstein 3D where it's game over for your progress if you lose all of them. If you die with an extra life remaining, the screen blinks and then the life is consumed, your health being restored in the process. In that sense, they're kinda like the bottled fairies from The Legend of Zelda. Do note, however, that if you die and respawn at a checkpoint, you permanently lose any extra ones you had previously. One interesting thing, though, is that you can revisit previous levels and farm them since they reappear. Some may frown upon this, but hey, if the game's gonna give it to you, you may as well use it, right? I won't tell anyone if you don't. The jumping and dashing felt pretty good, although the floating slabs had a bit of a learning curve to them. Of course, I feel I should address the elephant in the room. What I feel added nothing actually hurt the pacing and would be better off removed. That's right, my friends, I am, of course, referring to the purple goo and toxic water segments. The purple goo drastically cuts your moving speed and you can't dash or jump while you're in it. I kinda get wanting variety, but this isn't the best kind in my opinion, and it's especially bad in the Ark Complex when there's summon arena fights and a spot with a Hell Knight. The toxic water segments, thankfully only in one level, seem to have the opposite problem, making you rush while still moving pretty slowly. You better hope your rad suit lasts long enough to hit a refill while you're looking for the next place to go. Otherwise, you can kiss goodbye to your armor and possibly health. Ordek actually had a brief segment with non-damaging water, and I thought about how I wouldn't mind having extended underwater segments if they kept it like that. Thankfully, these two things are pretty rare to happen, but I still feel it really didn't need to be there, and they stand as slight blemishes to the overall experience. Just slightly. There's also toxic waste segments you can walk on, but I had significantly less issue with those. Your movement actually isn't limited at all, and you can actually jump around to keep above it if you're worried about the replenishable rad suit running out. Now on to the subject of the enemies. The regular zombies, possessed soldiers, and shield zombies act like they used to in 2016, just look a bit different with the latter two more closely resembling classic Doom enemies. Zombies melee and the other two longer range, with the shield zombies being the only ones to be hit scanned. A new zombie type now also has a flamethrower. Imps are their usual type that aggressively jump around and throw fireballs at you. There are also new gargoyle enemies that remind me of the ones from Blood in that they fly around and shoot projectiles. The enemies I mentioned up to this point are known as fodder enemies and die to one chainsaw bar. Obviously you want to use them as ammo pinatas, and use them you shall because you run out of ammo a lot quicker than 2016 too. From here on, the demons are tougher and implement more specialized strategies than 2016, not requiring but strongly encouraging certain tactics. Cacodemons seem to be a lot more bite-happy this time around, and they go into a glory kill state if you lob a sticky bomb or grenade into their grinning mouths. Pinkies and Hell Knights act as they do in 2016, with Pinkies still retaining their tailed weak spots. The Fireborn Baron replaces the previous Barons, getting a pretty hefty upgrade in both health and offensive power. Pain Elementals return from Doom 2, but thankfully don't seem to make permanent lost souls this time around. They'll throw lost souls at you that will disappear in a short while, as well as other tricks. Revenants also return from Doom 2016 and can have their missile launchers destroyed now. Their missiles can also lock onto you now, kinda like Doom 3 and Classic Doom, but you can double jump or use the dash to get out of it. They also seem quite vulnerable to the super shotgun, making them great armor pinatas for the meat hook. Arachnotrons are of course another addition from Doom 2, equipped with a turret that fires plasma and sort of grenade arc shots. You can destroy the turret, reducing it to the grenade arc shots. Likewise, the humble Mancubus returns from Doom 2016, sporting a new look, and their cannons can now be broken open, weakening their lobbed attacks and denying them the use of their flamethrower. The Cyber Mancubus is also back with its disgusting toxic shots, but you can remove its armor with a well-timed blood punch. You can't destroy its cannons though, so you just have to do the old-fashioned way and kill the thing. Tyrants are basically mini-boss cyber demons and even resemble their classic Doom counterparts, firing missiles but can be outmaneuvered. Howlers can be a bit annoying because they like to teleport around, but carcasses are practically the bane of my existence. I've had times where I just rage out with a plasma rifle to cut through their damn projected shields. Then, of course, there's the freaking Archvile. It teleports around, attacks you with fire, and can summon buffed demons. Obviously, you want to kill this guy quick as your priority once it starts appearing, preferably with a nice hot sword to the face. Kicking off with new enemies is the Dread Knight, basically an upgraded Hell Knight that is specifically weak to the chain gun. Whiplash has, well, a whip, and its snake-like body it slithers around and makes it hard to hit. Good thing for ice bombs, huh? Interestingly enough, there's one enemy called a Maker Drone. Basically, it pelts you with blasts, is resistant to non-headshots, and headshots turn it into a piñata. My recommendation? Become a brain surgeon. Scalpel, please. Okay, y'all know what's coming, and it's time to address the infamous Marauder. All I have to say is that this particular demon is completely full of okayness. I didn't have any major problems with it, at least in and of itself. It is a shield attack and alternates between a shotgun and firing off axe projectiles at you. It'll run up to you and try to slash you with its axe, eyes glowing green. This is your cue to attack. Alternating between the base attacks, the super shotgun and ballista work great. In a crowd, it can be a bit of a hassle to deal with, especially since it'll summon a ghost dog to hound you if you hit its shield. It wasn't exactly stand out hard from the rest of the enemies though, and I don't really have a problem with it being in the game. I just wish I didn't have to worry about zombies biting my ass off while waiting for an opportunity to strike. Interestingly though, the game takes the classic Doom route of introducing the Marauder as a boss before a reoccurring enemy. The other of these is the Doom Hunter, a cyborg on top of a sled. You blast it with plasma until its shield gives in, and from there, rocket fire seems to work the best in popping it off its sled to keep it from forming new shields. Overall though, just fire heavily on it and avoid its missiles. The other bosses that don't come back are the Gladiator, Conmaker, and Icon of Sin. The Gladiator follows the same flashing eye weakness of the Marauder, with the addition of glory killing to shut off its health bars. The Conmaker likewise has a shield that gets worn down to stunner, followed by a blood punch to the face. The Icon of Sin has two phases, first shooting off its armor and then shooting its body parts into gore. During this, it's summoning enemies and hitting heavily with its fist and fireballs, truly a tough finale boss. One other neat thing is that you've got a hub world in the form of the Fortress of Doom. You return here after most of the missions and you can listen to any vinyls you find, spin Sentinel batteries on upgrades and new suit skins, and admire the weapons and demon toys. You can also play the two first Doom games on the Slayer's retro computer, the second by typing Flint Taggart and the first by having all the cheats. It's not as interesting as the classic levels in 2016, but it's a very nice touch. Speaking of cheats, you find cheats as floppy disks throughout levels as secrets, along with the aforementioned toys, vinyls, and extra lives. I actually love the cheats. It really will up the replay value over time in my opinion. One that's especially a lot of fun is Overdrive, since it boosts your movement speed to something that feels more like the original Doom. Of course, not all the cheats give you an unfair advantage. QuakeCon mode adds audience applause, and Party mode adds confetti to enemy deaths Pyrovision style. Famine mode even makes the game potentially harder by denying you enemy drops. Gore nests have returned in the game, but this time they're optional secret encounters. Specific enemies respawn and you have a set amount of time to kill all of them. Obviously, you'll want to have full health and ammo before attempting one. Overcome the challenge and you get a free weapon point. You can upgrade weapons, your suit, up to 3 runes and grab crystals. The Chrono rune is also one of my favorites, slowing time temporarily when you press the mod activate button in mid-air. It's insanely handy if you want to kick it in with the super cannon to snipe weak spots with. The game is also full of cutscenes, but thankfully almost all of them can be skipped if you're so inclined. I haven't really played battle mode apart from trying out a bit of the tutorial, but I don't really care for multiplayer, so this review won't be covering it. However, if there's one thing in this game that truly disappoints me, it's in the lack of snap map. Not because I thought it was just so great, but because it was replaced with nothing.
You get nothing! You lose!
Doom has a very rich history of being completely moddable, so being the first game without the ability to make and play community content is very unfortunate. The team expressed interest in moving towards mods, which I hope they can, because it would seriously suck having Eternal be the first to lack fan content of any kind to only have new stuff coming from id themselves. Overall though, the game proved to be quite fun to play, and in Ultraviolence certainly had me sweating. You can change the difficulty at any time and even stack up extra lives from previous levels, so there's no excuse to say it's too hard if you ask me. Mostly it's about getting into the habit of using all your gear when and where you need it. It's still high-octane action as always, and it adds some thought level, which if you ask me is just fine. Throw in some modding or at least some map editing tools and it'll really be great.
Hey! Who are you? You can't be here.
You may not believe it from Doom's history, but Eternal actually has a pretty involved story. Obviously, there are spoilers ahead. It still has a very cheesy action movie tone akin to 2016, but it elaborates on things so much more. Basically, there are 3 Hell Priests working with the Makers to commit a culling onto Earth. The Slayer has a Fortress of Doom, presumably Maker and Sentinel in origin, and put the backup Vega in charge of its main systems. The Slayer is sent in to deal with the first Hell Priest, which he soon does after dealing with some imps and zombies. Making his way to the Conmaker summit, he meets the other 2 Hell Priests and drops the first priest's head in front of them. After pumping his shotgun with malicious intent, they get cold feet and warp out. The Conmaker essentially wags her finger and the Slayer leaves. On his way towards locating the 2 fled priests, the ghost of King Navet tries to convince the Slayer not to do it due to violation of their laws. The Slayer doesn't listen and ends up face to face with the betrayer, the guy who betrayed the Sentinel to get his son revived. Ever since, to his horror, his son was brought back as a demon, he put himself into exile. Despite this, he gives the Slayer a new orb for the locator and a strange artifact. The Slayer has now tracked down the second Hell Priest through a frigid snow base, and after beating the Doom Hunter thrice, kills the second Hell Priest. With 2 of them killed, the Makers accelerate Earth's invasion with a super Gore Nest. After acquiring 3 keycards, the Slayer uses a mechanism to pop the Gore Nest's heart, causing it to collapse. With the final Hell Priest kept well guarded, the Slayer heads out to find Samuel Hayden. He's seen better days, but the Slayer throws him into a portal and deals with the Marauder. Samuel takes over the Fortress of Doom's mainframe and tells the Slayer the final Hell Priest is in Sentinel Prime. On his way to the final Hell Priest, flashbacks of the Slayer's past can be seen. After dealing with the Combat Arena's Gladiator Demon, he kills the final Hell Priest, losing sovereignty in that area. The Conmaker isn't pleased and intends to trap him in the fortress so they can summon the Icon of Sin. However, the Slayer uses the Crucible he retrieved with Samuel to power up the fortress again. Due to the threat of the Icon of Sin, Samuel sends off the Slayer to get his old Crucible back. After getting it, the Slayer moves to shut down the Argent production of the Makers and the demons. Apparently, humans are tortured until they're broken-willed and then their souls are extracted as energy. Presumably, the husks then become the fodder demon zombies that you've been fighting. The Slayer makes his way to the Maker homeworld and pulls out the artifact the Betrayer gave him, which turns out to be a knife. With the heart of the Betrayer's son gone, the Icon of Sin awakens a mindless demon beyond even the Makers' control. Sadly, Figa is left behind in Ordak, stating he's the father, whatever that's supposed to mean. After aligning 3 rings to open a portal to Earth, after being reminded a few times that the Icon of Sin will get stronger the longer it's on Earth, the Slayer deals with the Conmaker. With her out of the way, all that's left to do is to deal with the Icon of Sin. After a pretty hardened fight where the Slayer has to cut off its armor and shred up its body, the blade of the Crucible is shoved into its brain and it's finally defeated. With that, the threat of Earth is finally gone, at least for now. I must admit the story proved a lot more interesting than I feared it might be. I actually heard that Heaven itself might also be the Slayer's enemy, which rubbed me the wrong way because Doom's always been about opposing Hell, the cesspool of evil. Thankfully, good isn't now evil. The Makers present themselves as something like angels, but they're clearly just some alien race that had been manipulating humans. The Hell seems to be real, but this is a false heaven, and they actually resemble demons once you remove the mask off the Conmaker. Overall, the story was done well enough. While it's more elaborate and involved than 2016, it still stays reasonably enough out of the way, and you can skip through the plot elements if you really want. Of course, inversely, you've still got logs to track down and read if you want even more depth. That's something I'll always respect, letting the player choose how much of the story to give a crap about, and thankfully Doom Eternal has a pretty good story. While it's on the same generation of consoles as 2016, Doom Eternal uses the newer id Tech 7 engine. I actually had to find this out the hard way when my ancient Core 2 quad wouldn't even run it. Oh well, I needed the upgrade anyway, and the less ancient i5-3470 is doing exceptionally well. I should first say that the game really does look much better than Doom 2016 did. I've learned from Digital Foundry that Doom Eternal moves away from the mega texturing system of 2016 in favor of a different kind of image streaming, and it really shows. It lacks the texture pop-in I've seen with 2016, and it has detail crammed everywhere. Between id Software claiming 10 times the detail for Eternal and Todd Howard claiming 16 times the detail for Fallout 76, all I'm saying is that one of those was actually telling the truth. You can actually see chunks of demons ripped apart as they get more damaged, giving it a sort of personal touch. Shoot in the arm and they'll have a bloodied arm and so forth. Of course, not just technically superior, Doom Eternal's aesthetic is also quite nice to look at. While 2016 was still a very fun game, the aesthetics haven't aged the best, and the dull-looking hell levels were actually a criticism in my review of it. Doom Eternal really moves away from this, injecting a ton of life into both the characters and the environments. Rather than resembling a mustard gas wasteland, Hell is represented in Eternal with rivers of lava and entire structures made of meat and teeth. I've heard it described as playing through a metal cover, and I can definitely see it. Even the asphalt looks nicer than it did, because stark gray nicely contrasts against colored backgrounds a lot better than yellow and brown. There's also a good amount of variety in environments at play here, from an Arctic base similar to Doom 2016 that captures the chilly feeling quite well to the beautiful and alien world of the Makers. Although I think Doom Eternal's environments shine their best when they're twisted forms of Earth. You can tell the Super Gore Nest largely consists of a shopping mall that's been tainted by Hell's influence, and the results are very pleasing to look at. The demons themselves are also largely bumped up in appearance. The possessed soldiers, shield zombies, imps, mancubi, and stand-in for the Cyberdemon, the Tyrant look significantly closer in design to classic Doom than Doom 2016. The health bonuses and medkits especially look like high-res 3D representations. The Icon of Sin now has a full body, and I think the team at id may have actually been inspired by the partial body seen in Doom 2 RPG. And that's not the only classic-style thing you can find. You can get armor based on the original Doom's box art as a skin for the cost of 2 Sentinel batteries, and while I have nothing against Eternal's armor, I got it immediately. I really like the minimalist look. Seeing the Slayer's bulky arms and leather gloves in first person just projects badass to me. You can also get the 2016 Praetor suit if you'd prefer that. The new demons are also designed fairly well, although the carcass straight up looks strong. That's not a bad thing, of course, just an observation. The Marauder is fairly cool in its design, and I actually like doing glory kills just to its left because it'll actually try to fight back. It'll fail, of course, because the Slayer also has an arm blade, but it accentuates what tough warriors they are. Even better is you've got a photo mode for previously beaten levels, and I've actually used it to make mini thumbnails in my live streams. If there's one criticism visually, it's that the bloom could stand to be a little less overwhelming at times, especially the pickups. From an audio perspective, the game does well enough. The music is very gritty like in 2016, although most of the tracks are normalized so they lose much of their bite. I'm not enough of a music file for it to be a deal breaker for me, but it's a very unfortunate step back from 2016. Voices are pretty nice. It's always great hearing Viga's Data from Star Trek voice, and there's a surprise. In one of the levels, you actually get a flashback to the Doomslayer and you can hear what he sounds like. If you don't want to get spoiled, you better mute this video right now.
They are everywhere. Must kill them all.
Overall, the game looks, sounds, and even plays very well. My aforementioned i5-3470, 8GB of DDR3 RAM, and GTX 1050 Ti was able to run it at higher settings at 900p and it barely skipped a beat. It really does close to that classic Doom look, and it's well optimized even on my modest computer. I really have to hand it to id Software. The representation is good enough to make 2016 feel already dated, which a good sequel should. Doom Eternal being 2016's sequel had a lot to live up to. 2016 was them getting their footing, sort of like a Star Wars The Force Awakens, so the pressure was on to make a worthy sequel. Luckily, 2016 wasn't just a lightning strikes once thing. Eternal really does do a lot to improve the original experience, both in how it looks and how it plays. It has a plot that manages to both feel a lot more involved while still maintaining that cheesy action movie vibe of 2016. It plays to more of a maximalist route to 2016's minimalist, and that's up to you whether that's good or bad. Still, for me, the good far outweighs the bad, and to use my Star Wars analogy, I'd compare Eternal to Revenge of the Sith. Some may dislike it, but I absolutely love it. Now, if we can just get some modding tools, or at the very least mapping tools. I'm being serious, id Software, get on it. Cheats help, but it's the community content that will give it true longevity. This has been my review of Doom Eternal. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.
Now go out and rip and tear until it is done.